What are your takeaways from one of the best games that we saw in Week 8 with the Falcons beating the Panthers in overtime?
Well, I think that this shows that both teams are tired of settling for mediocrity. I think this shows that both coaching staffs are willing to pretty much do anything at this point to get a win. I think that both quarterbacks played exceptionally well, mainly for me, Marcus Mariota, showing that he still has the capabilities to be a pure pocket quarterback and making some throws that people didn't even think he could anymore. He goes for 253 yards and 3 touchdowns. He did have 2 interceptions, but he was able to overcome that, of course, with also his mobility to be able to put 43 yards on the ground. And then Atlanta's attack on the ground, man. I mean, they had 167 yards rushing. It was literally, it looked to be unstoppable. But then you go and you look at the opposite side for Carolina. Both running attacks were incredible because Carolina had 169 yards. So this was definitely a game with no defense. Both teams played exceptionally well on the offensive side, but both defenses need to take into account we need to fix this if we're going to be competitive for the rest of the year. For me, it's a little weird for Carolina to be continuing to be this competitive, especially when people are favoring them to be chasing the number 1 overall pick. They're basically selling the entire team in terms of getting rid of personnel with Robbie Anderson. They're looking to get Burns out of there. CMC leaves. Obviously, they've gone with PJ Walker over Baker Mayfield. So it seems like they're in the motions to kind of just tank, so to speak. But you got to give PJ his flowers. Arguably the throw of the game to DJ Moore to send this game into overtime, which was just absolutely ridiculous. And DJ Moore goes and screws that up. And this is what I mean when players got to be mature. Players got to be able to keep themselves composed. So PJ Walker throws this incredible touchdown to tie the game at 34-34. And then DJ Moore, after catching it, immediately takes his helmet off while still in the field of play to celebrate, jump on the freaking the front row of the stands, and just go absolutely crazy. I understand the emotions are high. You're celebrating with your teammates. You just scored to put yourself in overtime, thinking that, well, I just scored and our kicker's going to get this extra point. Extra points are no longer at basically the what did they used to be at, Kyle? The 5-yard line, the 10-yard line, or whatever the hell they were?
They used to be at the 2-yard line.
They used to be so basically like the college. They used to be right there at the goal line. Now we're back in it, and now it's an average of 33 yards or 35 yards to kick an extra point, which we all know is not a guarantee. And that 15-yard penalty for the excessive celebration ends up getting them 15 yards back, and they miss the 48 or 47-yard extra point attempt, and the game goes to overtime. DJ Moore needs to have a lot more poise and needs to understand he needs to keep his emotions in check. Earlier in the game, when he had a drop, he threw his helmet on the sideline. So you can tell he's been frustrated and emotionally distraught pretty much the entire game. I mean, I would be too with a crappy team like this. But again, they still found a way to compete in overtime, but they missed the field goal to win in overtime, giving Atlanta the ball back. Obviously, Marcus leads them down the field. What is it? Co? I always forget the kickers.
I think it's Co. I
It's Co.
It's Co or Co. It's one or the other.
The Atlanta kicker wins them the game in overtime with a score of, again, 37-34. But that fourth quarter was literally back and forth. I mean, Carolina scored 21 points in the fourth. Atlanta scored 13. Kyle already said it. It was the battle of offenses. But DJ Moore is the complete sole reason why the Panthers didn't win this game. And at the end of the day, if you're going to be the focal point of an offense, you're going to be the person complaining you're not getting the ball, you got to be a leader. You got to lead by example. You can't go doing things like that no matter how much the emotions are at an all-time high. Atlanta moves on to 3-1 at home, and they are now leading the division of the NFC South.
I'm going to slightly disagree with you saying that DJ Moore lost them this game. I understand that you could look at that one specific instance where he definitely screwed up. I'm not denying that. Like, that's a mental mistake at the worst time imaginable. But Kev, let's be honest. Before this game went into overtime, the Panthers gave up 34 points. Defensively, they were a no-show today. And I understand that DJ Moore definitely screwed up, but we also have to look at the fact that Atlanta kind of gave it to the Panthers defense, and that was after the Panthers had one of the best defensive performances I've seen all year, where they held Tampa to 3 points. Granted, I know Tampa has their issues, but how do you go from allowing 3 points against Tampa to allowing 37 by the end of it against the Falcons just a week later? So, don't get me wrong, DJ Moore made a mistake. Phenomenal play, though. I mean, it's a perfect pass from PJ Walker. And honestly, to me, that was probably the best throw I've seen the entire season. I mean, he cocked back and just let that thing fly. And it was a perfect pass because if that ball was a yard shorter, it's either getting knocked down or it's getting picked off. Like, it was a perfect pass. And then for DJ Moore to throw his helmet off and just go absolutely buck wild after that, can't be doing that. I mean, it's very simple. And I wouldn't be surprised that, coaches are going to bring that up either right after the game, after the play just took place, and then probably tomorrow in film session. So, there's going to be a lot of emphasis on that play by DJ Moore. It was kind of a double-edged sword. Got the touchdown, but at what cost? So, overall, just to kind of dive into the game a little bit, this was a fantastic game, Kev. Like you said, this was a back-and-forth affair in the fourth quarter, and that's really what I'm going to focus on here. I mean, it got to a point where, okay, Atlanta scores, Carolina would answer back. Carolina would score, Atlanta would answer back. It was just back and forth, and I never really expected this type of game to take place with two what I would consider subpar teams to begin with the Falcons and the Panthers, just because, well, the Panthers are basically going full-out tank just because they've been trading away everybody, and I think they're just trying to improve their draft position at this point. But with efforts like this, maybe it had to kind of put that to rest a little bit just because they were really going back and forth against the Falcons, and they had a very good chance to win this game. But the mistake by DJ Moore, not being able to capitalize on some opportunities in overtime, the Panthers are sitting at a 2-6 record now because of some of just stupid mistakes. And then when you look at the Falcons, just to kind of look at them, I understand they're sitting at a 4-4 record. But I have to be honest with you. I know that this offense can produce. They have a great run game. But I don't know how effective they're going to be towards the second half of the year. Because, they are the number one team in the NFC South. But I still got to look to Tampa. Can they be able to win that home game against Tampa when they play against each other for the second time this year? That, to me, is going to be a real measuring stick. I know Tampa's gone through their issues this year. Tom Brady doesn't look the same. And if the Falcons can win that game, I mean, that would be absolutely critical for them when it comes to potentially winning the NFC South this year. But to me, the Falcons are a very shaky team. They're coming off of a game last week where Joe Burrow absolutely torched them for, I believe, 480 yards passing, and he had 500 total yards on top of it just because of some of the rushing yards he got. I think he got like 25. So, when I look at this Falcons defense, they are very suspect. They gave up 34 points to PJ Walker and the Panthers. And that was after they gave up 30 plus to the Bengals the week before. So this defense is suspect. And I think moving forward, if the Falcons were to falter, it's probably going to be because of their defense. I just don't think that they have the requisite pieces to be able to maintain that number one spot in the NFC South. But I will give them credit. They battled back in this game against the Panthers, and they were able to maintain as far as going toe-to-toe with the Panthers in this game, because the Panthers are scoring like that. You got to match it, and they were able to do it. But overall, a great game, probably one of the best games that we've seen all year. And who would have thought it would have came in a quarterback battle between Marcus Mariota and PJ Walker? I would have never imagined that going into this week, but hats off to both teams. They both played like winners as far as I'm concerned. Unfortunately, one team had to lose, but overall, just a fantastic game that took place on Sunday.